Basically, when he gets the ball, he is unbelievably difficult to bring down. This dude, telling you. Don't sleep on. Good afternoon, Bay Nation. Welcome to another episode of Fantasy Bay. I'm your host, Mike Williams, and today we're going over the top 12 running backs in fantasy football for 2023. PPR scoring. At number 1, we have Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey is the best PPR running back in fantasy football, period. He's basically like having a cheat code, a wide receiver and a running back in one position. Let me show you why. Last year, Christian McCaffrey had 85 receptions and 244 carries. That's a lot. He had the most receiving yards amongst all running backs last year with 741. 85 receptions, 740 yards, and 5 touchdowns. It's like an average wide receiver. And then you come back and you have 244 rushing attempts, over 1,100 yards, and 8 touchdowns. That's a solid running back year. Total, that's 13 touchdowns and almost 1,900 yards. That's wild. Last year, people were concerned that he would get injured again. And though that can happen to anybody, this is football and they play running back position, one of the most dangerous. He proved that he could play 17 games. And when Christian McCaffrey is on the field, he is the best fantasy running back in football. And that's why I have him in tier 1, number 1. He does have slightly more competition in San Francisco than he did in Carolina with Elijah Mitchell. I do think Elijah Mitchell will be involved. He's a solid running back. Christian McCaffrey is clearly the number 1 running back on the team, and they paid him as such. Last year, Christian McCaffrey signed the second biggest running back contract in football. 4 years, $64 million. You don't pay a running back $64 million if you're not going to utilize him. So everybody concerned with his workload, they gonna get their money's worth. But I am saying you don't pay somebody to sit him on the bench. Plus, the 49ers are a much better offense than the Carolina Panthers. The 49ers are gonna be in scoring position a lot more often, and he's gonna get a lot better touches. So even if he touches the ball less, I still think that he is going to be dominant. Running back 2, dropping down into tier 2, Austin Ekeler. Big fan of Austin Ekeler. I think that he is an elite running back. Similarly to Christian McCaffrey, he's used both on the ground and in the air. The team uses him kind of like he's a wide receiver. He's also one of the most elusive running backs in the league. Not to mention, he's a fan of fantasy football. We see you, Austin. We see you. Now, last year, Austin Ekeler had the second most targets in the last decade with 123. That's a lot. It's also an outlier. There were a lot of injuries to this team last year. Not only did Justin Herbert get banged up, but also Keenan Allen went out and he missed a full 7 games and was knocked out of another one. Mike Williams also missed 4 games and was knocked out of the 5th. The team was desperate for reliable receivers, so they turned to Austin Ekeler, which led to the career high in targets and receptions. He also had 18 total touchdowns. Austin Ekeler is a touchdown machine. Back-to-back years with 18 or more touchdowns. 18 total touchdowns was the most of any running back last year. Good job. There's a new offensive coordinator in town. Joe Lombardi's out, and in comes Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore loves to throw the ball. While he was in Dallas, 3 out of the 4 years, he was top 10 in pass attempts and yards. That's what I'm talking about. That's going to help Ekeler. All in all, Ekeler had a great year last year. But with all of the injuries, his targets were inflated. I think now that Keenan Allen and Mike Williams are back, plus the addition of Quentin Johnson, Austin Ekeler's targets will go down. But the arrival of Kellen Moore will increase Austin Ekeler's targets a bit. Ekeler is also in the last year of his contract. He's not happy about this. And though he wants a new contract, it doesn't look like he's going to get one this year. Look for Austin Ekeler to be playing a little extra hard because he's playing for a contract. Always monitor the contract year. Not that they don't try hard in the other times, but when this year decides whether or not you get paid, you go a little extra hard. My 3rd running back, dropping down to tier 3, is Derrick Henry, aka King Henry. You know I had to add the crown for this one. Derrick Henry is an absolute beast of a man. About 6'3", 250. He is unbelievably difficult to bring down and a stiff arm that embarrasses grown men. But he's not just big, he's fast. Man's got breakaway speed. Derrick Henry gets all the touches he can handle. A+ in carries. A+ in touchdowns inside the 5-yard line. A+ in explosiveness. A+ in missed forced tackles. What does all that mean? Derrick Henry is an incredible running back. And up until recently, he did almost all of his work on the ground. Derrick Henry jumped up from 18 receptions to 33 receptions. That's respectable. It's basically league average for running backs. Not bad. Especially when you're getting 349 carries. That was most in the league, by the way. Fourth most in the last decade. Henry has 2 of the top 4 most carries in a season. Needless to say, Derrick Henry's gonna get the ball. I mean, the man had 1,900 yards and 13 touchdowns, which is actually kind of low for him. Do I really need to explain much more? With a healthy year for Ryan Tannehill and maybe DeAndre Hopkins, Derrick Henry is set up for another elite year. There's only 2 things that concern me. Derrick Henry is currently the 3rd highest paid running back, but he's in a contract year. So does the team try to move him? Does he get re-signed? Or do they let him walk at the end of the year? I think that Derrick Henry is too elite to let him walk. So either they trade him or re-sign him. But he could see a heavy workload this year if they end up just playing it out and seeing where it goes. One of the major concerns is the offensive line. If you look at Pro Football Focus, the Tennessee Titans have the worst offensive line in the league. Even though they changed out 3 of their offensive linemen, they're still projected to be, just like last year, the worst in the league. Not good. But just like last year, I think Derrick Henry overcomes his bad offensive line. Last year he was a running back 4. This year I have him as a running back 3. He's a beast. Number 4 in tier 3, we got Josh Jacobs. Jacobs finished at running back 3 last year. He's been getting more involved in the receiving game. Back-to-back years with 50 or more receptions. Very solid. Huge jump up in carries from 217 to 340. That's a big jump. 1,650 yards and 12 touchdowns. He's had 12 touchdowns in 2 of the last 3 years. And over the back half of the year, he was the best running back in football from weeks 9 to 18. Did I mention that he has no running back competition? There's no one to steal touches from him. A+ in elusiveness, yards after contact. A+ in missed forced tackles after a carry. Basically, he's hard to bring down. He had the 2nd most carries last year and the most rushing yards last year. The most total yards and the most total opportunities last year. Basically, he's getting the ball left and right. There's 2 concerns with Josh Jacobs. Number 1, Derek Carr's gone. Jimmy G is there, but he's kind of banged up. So we don't know if Jimmy G is actually going to play. So who's this quarterback going to be? I'm less concerned about that than I am about the contract situation. Josh Jacobs is currently not signed to the Las Vegas Raiders. He's been given a franchise tag, but it doesn't look like he wants to sign it. Now, he has until Monday to get a new contract, but it doesn't seem like they're close. And he's possibly going to hold out. That's not good for fantasy football or the NFL if he actually holds out. But I understand. Get your money, Josh. Get your money. We're going to need to monitor Josh Jacobs and his contract situation. If and when he signs his contract, I think he's going to be a great fantasy asset. And he's going later than he should in draft. Running back number 5, starting tier 4, Saquon Barkley. Just like Josh Jacobs, the New York Giants want Saquon Barkley to sign the franchise tag. He has not done that yet. And just like Josh Jacobs, the team has until Monday at 4 p.m. to get a deal done. And if they don't get the deal done, either Saquon Barkley signs the franchise tag or I think he doesn't play. Now, I don't think it gets to that. I do think that Saquon Barkley either gets a new deal or signs the franchise tag because he'd be losing out on $10 million and nobody really wants to do that. But assuming he does play, Saquon Barkley is going to be phenomenal. Finished as running back 6 last year, running back 5 on a point per game basis. And he's finally looking like he's healing from that torn ACL he had back in 2021. Brian Dable made a huge improvement to this offense last year, and it's benefited Saquon as well. Last year, Saquon had the most targets he's had since his rookie year with Eli Manning. That's a huge improvement because Daniel Jones really wasn't looking to throw it to Saquon very often, and why not? He's one of the best pass-catching running backs in the league. So Brian Dable came in and said, hey, let's give it to our best player. He also had double-digit touchdowns for the first time since his rookie year. Looks like he's finally bounced back. He was top 5 in a bunch of categories. 4th most carries, 4th most rushing yards. And he ranks high in a lot of my metrics. A- in carries inside the 5-yard line. So basically when they get it in close, they use Saquon Barkley. An A in breakaway yards. So when he gets the ball, he can pull away from people. Saquon Barkley is an incredible running back on a okay offense. One of the major downfalls though, that offensive line is bad. They have the 4th worst offensive line in the league. That doesn't help your rushing game, but means you probably need to dump off the ball a little more often, so his receptions could stay pretty solid. Now, the Giants did draft a wide receiver, but I don't really think that's going to eat into his workload. He has no competition for carries. He's going to get all the work. I think Saquon Barkley is going to be a great pick. Running back 6, Nick Chubb. For those of you who don't know or don't watch Nick Chubb, he might actually be the best pure runner in the NFL. This dude is unbelievable if you watch him play. A+ in breakaway yard, A+ in missed forced tackles after carry, A+ in yards after contact, A+ in elusiveness. Basically, when he gets the ball, he is unbelievably difficult to bring down. This dude, telling you, don't sleep on Nick Chubb. Some of you may not remember this. Weeks 1 through 8, Nick Chubb was the best running back in fantasy football. Then Deshaun Watson came back and it wasn't pretty. He dropped to the 14th running back when Deshaun Watson joined. Now, Deshaun Watson obviously hasn't played football in multiple years. He was clearly rusty at best. I do think that this offense is going to go through a transformation this year. I believe they're going to be throwing the ball more. And they've said that they want to get Nick Chubb more involved in the passing game. With Kareem Hunt gone, I do actually think they get him more involved in the passing game. I mean, what other running back are they going to throw it to? If you give Nick Chubb receiving work, he has top 3, if not number 1 running back upside. Like I said, he might be the best actual running back in the league. He had the 3rd most carries in the league last year with 302, the 3rd most rushing yards with 1,525, and tied for 4th with the most rushing touchdowns with 12. This man has rushed for over 5 yards a carry every year of his career. That's 5 years. There are some running backs on this list that have never run for more than 5 yards a carry. That's incredible. 3 out of the last 4 years, he's had double-digit touchdowns and over 17 total yards for the 2nd time in his career. I say all that to say this. Nick Chubb is an incredible running back. And with his work on the ground, as well as in the air, he's going to be a steal of a pick. And if Deshaun Watson actually gets back to form and plays well, it's going to be a better offense, which is only going to give him more valuable touches. I love Nick Chubb this year. Oh yeah, and not to mention, they have the 2nd best offensive line in the league, according to Pro Football Focus. Man, Nick Chubb's about to be a problem. Running back 7, Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard had a mini breakout last year. He finished as the 7th running back overall, and Ezekiel Elliott is gone. That's more work for Tony Pollard. Now, Tony Pollard got injured in the divisional round last year. Well, I guess this year was in January. In the 2nd quarter against the 49ers. He had a left fibula fracture that required surgery. The reports I've been seeing, Pollard says he'll be ready for training camp. And for now, I believe him. I think that if he starts the season healthy, he's going to be great. And he's going to be pretty good value, assuming Zeke doesn't come back. At the moment, he doesn't really have much competition for running backs behind him. Now, mind you, he hasn't had a full workload, but in the work he has been given, he's been over 5 yards a carry for 3 of the last 4 years. That's pretty good. And he did it last year with 193 carries. That's not a small amount of carries to rush for over 5 yards a carry. Very talented. He also had 12 touchdowns and over 1,300 yards. Almost 1,400. Pretty good. First double-digit touchdown year. Nice. Tony Pollard is also on the franchise tag, just like Jacobs and Barkley. Except Tony Pollard actually signed his franchise tag a while ago. Again, that makes this a contract year. Players always go a little extra hard in a contract year. You gotta get that money locked up. Having the 6th best offensive line will definitely help that. PFF has the Cowboys moving from 12 to 6. That is fantastic for a running back trying to get paid. Now he's got a good offensive line behind him, and the head coach came out and said he wants this team to run the ball more. Let me just get this straight. Very little competition because Zeke left. You're playing on a franchise tag, so you got to go extra hard so that you can get paid, so you can be the guy, meaning he's still hungry. You got the 6th best offensive line in the league, according to Pro Football Focus. And your coach says that they want to run the ball more? Tony Pollard is set for a breakout. You heard it here first. I'm just the messenger. Tier 4, running back 8, Bijan Robinson. Bijan Robinson was drafted 8th overall to the Atlanta Falcons. And anytime you draft a running back in the top 10, you are going to utilize him as often as possible. And the Atlanta Falcons love to run the ball. And they were one of the best running teams in the league last year. And they upgrade to Bijan Robinson? Bijan Robinson is unbelievably talented, dominated the combine. He's a pass-catching running back that goes to a bad division. Yes, I know my Bucks are in this division, but we're still not a great division. He's got breakaway speed, elusiveness, and the kid's just playing tough to tackle. And considering he's going to be involved in the running game and in the passing game, even if they get down by a lot, they'll still use him to come back. So I think that Bijan Robinson has a lot of upside because of all the volume and his talent. I don't see Bijan busting this year, not just because of how talented he is, but when you draft somebody 8th overall, you're going to give him as many opportunities as possible. Coaches and GMs are like everybody else. They want their bosses to think that they're smart and that they make good decisions. And objectively, drafting a running back 8th overall on a team that's not good and has a bunch of other holes to fix, you at least need to show drafting Bijan Robinson was a good decision. They will give him all of the opportunities he can handle. The Falcons also have the 7th best offensive line. That'll help. Starting tier 5, my 9th running back, Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor was the number 1 overall pick in most fantasy drafts last year. I had him number 2 behind Chris McCaffrey. People told me I was crazy because CMC gets hurt so often. And I told him that Jonathan Taylor could get hurt just like anybody else could. Unfortunately, it came to be, and Jonathan Taylor had an injury-riddled season. Hate to see it. Jonathan Taylor's unbelievably talented. A+ in missed forced tackles after a carry. A+ in yards after contact. A in elusiveness. And he has breakaway speed. The problem last year was injuries. In and out of the lineup with injuries was just awful. He had 2 major injuries in 2022. In October, he had a pedal ankle sprain, grade 2, knocked him out of that game. He then proceeded to miss 2 games after that, came back strong, banged up in week 8, didn't play week 9. From week 10 to 13, he was great. And then he has another pedal ankle sprain, grade 3. Underwent cleanup surgery. Luckily, there was no structural damage found. But he didn't get to play the rest of the season. So his year was basically riddled with injuries. And now you're bringing in one of the most athletic quarterbacks we've ever seen in the combine, Anthony Richardson. He's going to be the new quarterback for the Colts. With Anthony Richardson being as dominant as he is of an athlete, he's going to use some of that athleticism. Whereas when you have Matt Ryan or Carson Wentz, they may stick in the pocket and dump it down. Anthony Richardson is probably going to run the ball more, meaning less receptions for Jonathan Taylor. He's also a rookie, so it's probably going to be a worse offense. So he's not going to be in the red zone as much, meaning they're not going to score as much, meaning he will get less touchdowns. And when they do get in the red zone, where Matt Ryan and Carson Wentz probably weren't going to be rushing in touchdowns, and those touchdowns would go to Jonathan Taylor, those same touchdowns may now go to Anthony Richardson. Now, don't hear what I'm not saying. Jonathan Taylor is incredibly talented, and I think that there's a chance he has some upside. But rookie quarterbacks concern me, especially when they run the ball very well, because they take opportunities away from your running back. And that's why he's in a lower tier. On a positive note, they do have the 8th best offensive line in the league. That should help. Tier 5 running back 10, Rhamondre Stevenson. He got an A in rushing yards per attempt, A- in breakaway yards, A+ in yards after contact per attempt, and an A+ in elusiveness. Rhamondre Stevenson is very tough to bring down, and I love that he gets involved in the passing game. He jumped up from 14 receptions to 69 receptions. Now, I call that a 3-down back. He broke 1,000 yards for the first time, and he was just under 5 yards a carry. Pretty good. But his total touchdowns, 6 this year, 5 the year before that. 1,400 yards is great. Almost 300 opportunities, fantastic. Only 6 touchdowns. For him to move up in the rankings, he's gonna need to get more touchdowns. 6 and 5 aren't gonna cut it. I understand though, Patriots haven't been a very good offense recently. But with Damian Harris out, it should increase the workload for Rhamondre Stevenson because the people behind him, they're okay at best. Nobody really scares you. Running back 11, Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon would normally be higher up on my list. But for those of you who don't know, he currently has a legal situation going on that has been unresolved. I won't go into it in too far detail. It has something to do with road rage. It happened earlier this year in January. So I am concerned that he's going to be suspended. If he ends up not being suspended, I'll revisit his ranking. But as of right now, there's a chance he misses a game or two. Mixon plays for one of the best offenses in the league. The Bengals are a high-flying offense. He doesn't have any competition at the running back position. Samaje Perine is gone, and they got a bunch of Jags behind him. Joe Mixon had a career high in both targets and receptions last year with 60 receptions. That's pretty good. His total yards for the year were only around 1,250, but in 3 of the last 5 years, he's had 1,400 or more yards. That's pretty solid. We track that as an A-. He also has an A- in carries inside the 5-yard line. That means when they get in close, they go to Joe Mixon. That is a great quality you want in a running back. He just restructured his contract, so he will be staying with the team. All that being said, Joe Mixon is an inefficient runner though, so he is going to rely on volume. He's been less than 4 yards per carry in 2 of the last 3 years. That's not good. But he's getting the volume. So as long as he keeps getting volume, he should be fine. But if that volume ever were to decrease, we'd have a problem. But like I said earlier, there are no backups behind him that are a threat to him, so he should get a lot of work. One thing that will help Mixon is the improvement of the offensive line. PFF has the Bengals improving by 11 spots from last year, going from 28 to 17. So that means they went from one of the worst offensive lines in the league to middle of the pack. That is going to help the entire offense, which ipso facto helps Mixon. They got Orlando Brown from the Chiefs. He's a great left tackle and should make a vast improvement. To round out my top 12, Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders moved from the Philadelphia Eagles to the Carolina Panthers, and he got paid. Miles Sanders is now the 7th highest paid running back in the league. 4 years, $25 million. Now, that is what I'm talking about. The best way to tell what a team is going to do is look where they spend their money. Making a running back the 7th highest paid running back is basically telling us they're going to use Miles Sanders. And my guess is he's going to be used differently in Carolina than he was in Philadelphia. Miles Sanders may have never played for Carolina, but he does have a connection with Carolina. Deuce Staley was the assistant coach for the Philadelphia Eagles Miles Sanders' rookie year. The same year, he had 50 receptions. 50 receptions! In the last 3 years, since Deuce Staley hasn't been coaching Miles Sanders receptions have been in the 20s. Well, Deuce Staley has let it be known that Miles Sanders will be more involved in the receiving game this year. Now, this is huge for Miles Sanders. The Eagles don't throw the ball to their running back very much, but in Carolina, there's a rookie quarterback. He's kind of small, so I don't think he's going to be running the ball as much as Jalen Hurts. Also, one of the best friends to a rookie quarterback, especially one that doesn't run, is having a running back to dump it off to. Now, if you have an Anthony Richardson back there, he might be more apt to run the ball, but Bryce Young is probably going to dump it off to his running back and stay healthy. I think his receiving increases across the board. Receptions, yards, touchdowns. Now, last year, he went off on the ground. 259 carries for almost 1,300 yards and 11 touchdowns. That's the most touchdowns he's had in his career, by far. Sanders had an A- in missed forced tackles after carry, A- in yards after contact, and a B+ in elusiveness. Not bad for somebody you're probably going to get in the 5th round. Miles Sanders has serious upside. I think he has a fantastic year, and people are really sleeping on him. On a negative note, he had an A- last year in carries inside the 5-yard line. That's definitely going down because he's going to be on a much worse offense that won't be in the red zone anywhere close to as much as the Eagles were. He's also not a good pass blocker, and if he blows enough coverages, Bryce Young could be on his back, and Miles Sanders might get a talking to. So that's going to do it for my top 12 running back rankings. So what did I get right? What did I get wrong? Who do I have way too high and who's way too low? Let me know down in the comments. Let me know if you have any questions. Good luck in your draft. Peace.